Hello, my name is Matthew Hossel, and today I'm going to talk about two Griffith University buildings and how they are sustainable in comparison to each other. The two buildings in question are G09 and G16. Griffith University currently has a net zero carbon emissions by 2050 goal. This goal is obviously to make sure all buildings at Griffith emit no carbon footprints on the earth by 2050. By looking at these two buildings, we can get an understanding of what Griffith is doing right and how we can improve these buildings, as well as all buildings in the Gold Coast Griffith campus. In the past, Griffith used multiple techniques to reduce their ecological footprint. One in particular is the 2017 to 2020 strategic plan, which looked to reduce greenhouse gases and introduce more eco-friendly ways of travel. The main one of interest was the introduction of electric charging for electric cars and bikes. The strategy proved helpful as the charge bays are filled up almost every day, which shows use of eco-friendly travel. Looking at the two buildings, they are both rich in shading. By example, they both have covered shading around their windows, and both have a large amount of nature around them, as seen in figure 1 and 2. However, there is notably more trees around G09 compared to G16. This will impact how much sunlight G09 can get during the day, but should keep natural airflow and cooling better in the building. G16 lacks the amount of nature and therefore is less comfortable to breathe in. The primary difference between these two buildings is their uses. G09 being used for half staff offices and half engineering activities with students, and only being 1 story high, whereas G16 is a 4-story general student classroom building. Seen in figure 3 to 8, we can see that the buildings have completely different shapes and construction. Orientation is pretty neutral, however, as both buildings have windows and lighting coming in from all sides. In relation to connection, both buildings are pretty close to parking and bike parking, seen in figures 9 and 10. However, the general parking at Griffith fills up very quickly. Then there is also the discussion by catching the tram. The tram stops very close to G09 and a distance away from G16. You can see the tram stop in figure 9 and the nearby distance. So sustainability-wise, it seems both buildings benefit from the use of riding bikes to class. However, the tram is only really valid for G09. As far as ventilation goes, you have a nice breeze that goes through the open area in G16 to the door when it's open, easily seen in figure 11. In G09, there is a nice opportunity to get a breeze straight through the middle as seen through figure 12. However, these doors automatically close in both buildings, so the opportunity for a breeze is much lower. Seen through the neighbours rating, where G09 is rated lower due to how much air conditioning they have to use because of their lack of natural ventilation. As far as proximity, G16 is particularly isolated, meaning it doesn't have heat from other buildings impacted onto it. However, this means it doesn't get much shade and is hit completely by most of the sun as seen in figure 13. In comparison, G09 is surrounded by buildings, most being much taller, therefore heat from those buildings will cause a slight increase in heat. However, the structure is shaded by most of it during surrounding buildings as seen in figure 14. Overall, it seems both buildings have a decent coverage by sunlight as seen in figure 8 to 13 again. However, through the comparison of different aspects such as trees and surrounding buildings, we can take notice that they aren't similar. From these, it is clear that G09 gets limited sunlight and remains shaded most of the day, whereas G16 is very isolated and doesn't get much shade from surrounding buildings or nature. Looking at the strategic plan 2020 to 2025, it is clear that Griffith University wants to be ranked top 200 universities in the world for their sustainable development goals. I believe that the two buildings in question can be slightly improved to help meet these goals. There are multiple ways to achieve this, one of which being to include a proper airflow system in both buildings. Refer to figure 15 and 16, where you can see the highlighted changes to give the buildings better airflow. I've recommended air vents at multiple entrances to allow for a clear example of what the buildings need. For example, G09 needs a few vents in a few different places, as far as near the doors and in the middle, just so airflow can get through nicely and you can have a nice airflow overall. Another way we can make the two buildings sustainable is solar panels. For renewable energy, due to the sun path, I recommend that facing north, and as seen in figure 17, I've highlighted that for G09, we can position them on the south side facing north, so as to not be shaded during the day. However, for G16, the majority of the building is in the light. So I think just putting the panels on the roof facing north will be efficient, also seen in figure 17.